Hello, this is Jeremy Logsdon at Jamf, and in Lesson 18 we'll be talking about configuration profiles for iOS. The goal of this lesson is to help understand the basics of configuration profiles, what they can achieve and how they're deployed, and how to create them. Configuration profiles are XML files with the .mobileconfig extension that provide an easy way to define settings and restrictions for mobile devices. Jamf Pro utilizes the Apple Push Notification Service, or APNS, to deploy these files. For more information about APNS, check out Lesson 8. Configuration profiles can be found by navigating to the Mobile Devices section of Jamf Pro and clicking Configuration Profiles. We have the option to upload profiles created elsewhere, or we can click the New button to start from scratch. Configuration profiles have a list of payloads on the left side that can be configured to apply different settings. A few payloads that are commonly used include passcode, restrictions, and Wi-Fi. Let's start with the passcode payload. By clicking Configure, we can create a passcode policy requiring devices to have a passcode with a specific length, complexity, age, and so on. This will require a minimum passcode length of 6 characters, and maybe require a new passcode after 120 days. Then we need to scope this out, let's say to the Minneapolis building. Click Scope, and we're going to deploy this to devices specifically in the Minneapolis building, so we'll leave specific mobile devices selected, and click Add to add a target. Click Buildings, add Minneapolis, and lastly, we just need to name this profile. And then I can assign this to a category to keep organized. Then click Save, and if we click Done, we can see this is completed on one mobile device, which is in the Minneapolis building. These numbers can be helpful for troubleshooting if it seems not all devices are receiving the configuration profile. Taking a look at the behavior on the device, the user is prompted to create a passcode within 60 minutes. If they continue to defer or tap the Later button, after an hour has passed, the user will be forced to set up a passcode meeting the requirements of the passcode payload. Next, let's create a configuration profile to apply some restrictions. Again, we'll click New. I'll name this for Restrictions and organize it in a category. Then click the Restrictions payload and click Configure. There are a lot of options for restrictions, so we won't be covering all of them, but it's important to note that many of these require devices to be supervised, indicated by Supervised Only in parentheses at the end of the description. If we don't want to allow use of camera, deselect that option. Since FaceTime relies on the camera, FaceTime is also disabled with this option. The same applies if we don't want to allow use of the App Store. Just deselect that option. Once restrictions have been configured, we need to scope this out. If we want every managed mobile device to receive these restrictions, we can click Scope and select All Mobile Devices. Then click Save. Taking a look at the iPad, the camera app, FaceTime, and the App Store are hidden from the home screen. And if trying to search for those apps, they cannot be found. Last, let's create a configuration profile with Wi-Fi settings. Again, click New, name this profile and categorize it, and then select Wi-Fi and click Configure. Here we can define settings for specific Wi-Fi networks. So if we want devices to automatically connect to the Jamf EDU network, that will be our SSID. Leave Auto Join selected, select the security type, and enter the password. Many payloads support multiple configurations, Wi-Fi being one of them. If we want to include settings for an additional network, we can scroll to the top and click the plus button in the top right corner to add another configuration to the Wi-Fi payload. Fill in the information for the additional network, and then we have to scope this out. We can choose to target specific mobile devices, add a target, and select the education department, and then click Save. On the iPad, we can view these settings by going to Settings, General, scroll to the bottom on the right of General, tap Profiles and Device Management, MDM Profile, more details, and now we see the Jamf EDU and Class 1 wireless networks. You may have noticed we created 3 different configuration profiles, each with only one payload configured. This is because you want to avoid bundling multiple non-related payloads into one configuration profile. It's recommended to create unique configuration profiles to achieve separate goals, and here's why. Consider there's a configuration profile with Wi-Fi and passcode payloads configured. Once the profile is deployed to devices, if we need to make a change to the passcode payload, for example, the way the profile is updated on the device is the old one is removed first and then the new one is installed. But by removing the old profile, this would effectively remove Wi-Fi as well. If the device has no other possible connections, it cannot receive the new profile. So pro tip, for most configuration profiles, only configure one payload per profile. That's all for the lesson on configuration profiles for iOS. Be sure to check out the next lesson covering iOS app deployment. Thanks for watching.